All right, guys, so today's notes are quadratic formula. Go ahead and work on the warm-up. All right, so for the warm-up, they ask us what are the zeros for the quadratic below? Well, I see I have 2x squared equals 8x minus 7. I want to get everything on the same side so I can have this equation equal to 0. So I change the equation to 2x squared minus 8x plus 7 equals 0. Now, methods that we have learned so far are graphing. Well, I could graph this. That's a possibility. Factoring. I could factor this. Complete the square. While the middle term is an even number, the first term isn't a perfect square, so I could not do complete the square. And then square root. I have a middle term. That's why I can't do square root. So I'm going to go ahead with factor. So I got 2x squared minus 8x plus 7. On my m side, I have 2 times 7, which is 14. My a side, I have negative 8. 1 times 14 equals 15. And then 2 times 7 gives me 9. Nothing adds up to give me 8. So it turns out I can't even do this with factoring. The only method that I could do possibly to get this answer out of the one we know right now would be graphing. However, what we're learning today is another method that will allow us to be able to solve a question like this, where we tried to factor it and it doesn't work. This method is called quadratic formula. What is there in that blue box is your quadratic formula. You want to go ahead and write that down. Now, when it comes to quadratic formula, you must have your equation in ax squared plus bx plus c form. In other words, you want your quadratic equal to 0. It's not equal to 0, you don't got it in standard form, so get it in equal to 0, and then you can go ahead and use your quadratic formula. In the quadratic formula, notice you have 3 different letters, A, B, and C. You get those numbers, because each of those letters are going to represent numbers from your standard form equation. So the A, your coefficient of x squared, your B is your coefficient of x, and then C being your constant. And what you're going to do with the quadratic formula is you're going to take each of those numbers and place them in that exact spot. So negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a is what you'll end up doing. And in the end, you'll simplify the quadratic out and work it out to see if you get 1 answer, 2 answers, or no answers. Because remember, when we talk about a quadratic, there is a possibility to have no solution, 1 solution, or 2 solutions. Often we have seen a lot of 2 solutions, but we've seen some cases where there are 1 and no solutions. So let's backtrack for a minute. Let's go back to the problem that we had back on the warm-up. Let's try and use the quadratic formula for it. So you need to know your A, B, and C. So I just write my letters underneath the numbers. All right. So A equals 2, B equals negative 8, C equals 7. And now all I have to do is put all of these in my quadratic formula. X equals negative b plus minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. So for us, it's going to be negative b plus minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2 times a. Now from there, I would start with what's in my square root. Trying to find out what that is equal to. So for us, we have negative 8 squared, which is going to be a positive 64, minus 4 times 2 times 7, which equals 8. So at this point, I have negative 8, which is a positive 8, plus minus the square root of 8, all over 2 times 2, which is 4. So then what are my two answers? Well, my two answers are going to be 8 plus the square root of 8 over 4, and 8 minus the square root of 8 over 4. All right, let's take a look at another one. Okay, so here I got this one here. I got x squared plus 4x plus 1. Again, let's go ahead and let's identify our A, B, and C. So my A is 1, B is 4, C is 1, and I know that because I am equal to 0. So x equals negative B plus or minus the square root of B squared minus 4AC all over 2 times A. And really all I'm putting in my calculator at this point is seeing what I get underneath the square root. So 4 squared, which is 16, minus 4 times 1, which is 12. So I get x equals negative 4 plus minus the square root of 12 over 2 times 1, which is 2. So that tells me my two answers are x equals negative 4 plus the square root of 12 over 2, and x equals negative 4 minus the square root of 12 over 2. All right, why don't you pause the video and see if you can try the next one. Okay. So on the next one, I am equal to 0. My A is 2, my B is negative 6, and my C is 15. So x equals negative B. And notice that I'm putting that negative 6 in parentheses because I need to make sure I pay attention to that. I'm doing the opposite of negative 6. All right, plus or minus the square root of B squared minus 4 AC all over 2 times A. In my square root, I have negative 6 squared, which is 36, minus 4 times 2 times 15. And that gives me x equals positive 6 plus or minus the square root of negative 84 over 4. As soon as I get that negative 84, guys, in the square root, that tells me we have no solutions. Slash x-intercepts. I cannot have a negative number underneath the square root. So anytime you get a negative number underneath that square root, that's how you know no solution, no x-intercepts. And if you did want to confirm to make sure you did it correctly, remember, you can go graph that equation, 2x squared minus 6x plus 15. And when you do that, you will see that there is no point where this crosses the x-axis. The parabola is above the x-axis. The vertex never goes down to it, which is why we have no solutions, no x-intercepts. All right, let's go ahead. We'll do one more here. I got x squared plus 6x equals negative 9. Remember, we need to be equal to 0, so I need to add 9 to both sides to get x squared plus 6x plus 9 equals 0. All right, pause the video. Find out what the zeros are from the quadratic formula. All right, so I have A equals 1, B equals 6, C equals 9, and then I'm just plugging it in. Notice, guys, a lot of quadratic formulas just finding out what your A, B, and C is, plug them into the formula. Negative B plus minus square root of B squared minus 4AC all over 2 times A. All right, so in my calculator, I'm going to put 6 squared, which is 36, minus 4 times 1 times 9. And that gives me 30, gives me 0. So now I have negative 6 plus or minus the square root of 0 over 2 times 1, which is 2. Anytime that you get 0, guys, this is what's going to tell you you are going to have one solution, one x intercept. Because the square root of 0 is 0. No matter what, if you added or subtracted, you're still going to have the same answer. So I'm going to get negative 6 plus 0 divided by 2, negative 6 minus 0 over 2. Both of them come out to be negative 6 over 2, which is negative 3. Which is why we just say we only have one answer whenever that is the case.